Welcome everyone to our lunch and learn today. I'm very excited to have Leo here to talk with us about Direct Advocacy and Resource Center and all the work that they do. And Leo, I'll let you take it over.
Oh, thank you so much, Kate. Hi, my name is Leo. My pronouns are they, them. As Kate introduced, I work at Direct Advocacy and Resource Center, which is a center for independent living. We are located just south of the corner of Speedway and Alvernon, so we're kind of in the heart of Midtown. If anyone has any questions throughout the course of this presentation, feel free to chime in. So unmute yourself at will, or pop in your questions in the chat. I'll be sharing my contact information towards the end of the presentation. We'll be hopping around, learning a little bit more about Direct, our programs and services. And as you can see, this first slide, Kate and I were chatting about it, but we've got a couple of photos of different activists and advocates who we've worked with locally, as well as those who were pivotal to the founding of the independent living movement. So we are dedicated to ensuring equal opportunity to participate in all aspects of life within our community. Which actually leads into the next slide about our mission and vision. So our mission is to advocate for voice, choice, and independence for people with disabilities. And our vision, so what that looks like, is universal access, meaning everyone, regardless of age, ability, or just stage of life, should be able to have equal access to all levels of public life, and to live the way that they would like to live. So Centers for Independent Living were born out of activism in the 60s and 70s. So for quite some time, that led to the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Acts, so the ADA. We are what's called consumer-controlled, community-based, cross-disability, non-residential, private nonprofits. And these are designed and operated within a local community by individuals with disabilities, and they provide an array of different services, which I'm going to go into in just a moment. So from our mission becomes our movement and then a milestone. So I will say that CILs, so CIL for Centers for Independent Living, are a little bit different in the sense of we really want to meet folks where they're at. We want to make sure that you are the one in the driver's seat if you're working with us. We're also cross-disability and multicultural, meaning that we don't just serve one population of folks with disabilities. If you identify as having any disability, we are happy to meet you where you're at and also to provide as much support as we possibly can. So again, this was born out of a grassroots social change movement, the independent living movement specifically. So you'll see an image, I know it's kind of small, in the corner of one of the founders of this movement. His name is Ed Roberts, who spearheaded the charge for community-based non-residential services. So you could say that we are a part of both the disability rights movement as well as the up and coming, I say this because it's more, more recent, excuse me, disability justice movement. Talking about how we as individuals, as a society, need to move past this idea of just legislation or the law being our number one priority, but also being accepted and a part of our social and civic life, and not focusing so much so on these ideas that we have to be or exist a certain way. I will get off of my soapbox, but we have been here for over 40 years. So if you have questions about disability rights or disability justice, I am very, very happy and eager to chat about that afterwards. So I did go into it a little bit, but a little bit of our difference, I could say, is a philosophical shift. So we were talking about disability rights and disability justice, but what does that look like in application? So in the past, folks would go into the moral or the medical model of disability, which is this idea that disability is an impairment. So kind of having separate but equal segregated courses and or treatment of people with disabilities. Whereas with the civil rights and social model of disability, we recognize that barriers are different for everyone. So we try to advocate for social change and access into these institutions and structures and really focus upon how do we live our most independent lives. And also try to dispel any misconceptions that being independent means you have to do everything yourself. What it really means to us is, do you get the choice to speak up for your wants and needs and make sure that you are the one driving those decisions rather than having somebody tell you how you have to live, and so on and so forth. So, of course, these principles do drive the way that we approach every aspect of public life and also how we engage with our community. So, we presume eligibility, meaning that when you self refer, I nor my colleagues will ask you for any sort of documentation saying that, hey, you have a disability. We're not going to ask for your medical records. We also are participant focused and directed, meaning it's your way or the highway. We want to meet you where you're at. Also, when we think about informed choice, we want to make sure that you are aware of all of the options that you have, because sometimes not every organization is a good fit for one another, and that's okay. We want to support you. We also recognize dignity of risk. Basically, what this means is you are your own person. Most of the folks that we meet and work with are adults or 16 and up, meaning that you should have the opportunity to make your choices, regardless of what those choices may be. And we want to recognize wholeness of each individual. And last but not least, community integration. We want to make sure that as a part of our community, you feel as if you are a part of that community, and not feel like you have to be gerrymandered or pushed to the side in favor of other individuals. So, into this, we'll kind of talk a bit about the principles of independent living and IL philosophy, although I feel like I've already given you a smattering of what that looks like. So, the independent living philosophy states that people with disabilities are the experts on their own individual needs and lives, meaning that my access needs may look different from yours and vice versa. We put the focus on fixing society and not on individuals who have disabilities. The goal is to ensure that everyone has the same rights and life choices as everyone else. So once again, we have our founder, Ed Roberts, the father of independent living, where in this quote he states, "I realized that disability is actually a strength. Disability can be very powerful." So as I had stated earlier, our key principles are consumer control, informed choice, dignity of risk, and community integration. And to perhaps provide another perspective on it, we have a couple of different blurbs about what this might mean. So, consumer control, meaning that you maintain power, authority, and responsibility over your own life. Informed choice, meaning that you have all of the information about viable options as well as the right to make those decisions. Dignity of risk is having the right to make informed choices. And I really like this statement, including mistakes, just like anyone else. So, trial and error, try and try again. And ultimately, having that as an opportunity. I think that that can't be overstated. When we go into our day to day, Of course, we're going to encounter moments where we don't know what the right option is, or we have to try to figure out what that might be. And last but not least, community integration. So, living and participating fully in all aspects of life within the community. Here we see a comparison of different views and approaches, which I had spoken about a little bit earlier. If you'd like a sample of the slides, feel free to send me an email after the presentation, and I would be happy to share this with you. Also, one of the pivotal leaders of the disability rights movement, Judith Heumann, may she rest in peace, states independent living is not doing things yourself, it is being in control of how things are done. So, Direct's role within the community is to assist people with disabilities in efforts to achieve their self identified life goals. Not what your DDD support coordinator is telling you to do, not what your parents or guardians are telling you to do, not what your friends are telling you to do, but what you want to do. And we really do think that it's very critically important that we don't impose our own values or choices. So, if you were to ask me, Leo, what are your thoughts on this? Sure, I will give you my thoughts on it, but I'm not going to push you in a specific direction. I want to know, what do you think about things? Also, we give tools. We do not do things on behalf of folks. So we'll mentor, we'll provide support, train or educate, inform, facilitate, and advocate with you, but we will never be the person who kind of steps into your shoes and pretends to be you in order to do something. And last but not least, we empower participants to take control of their own lives and become their own best advocates. So, I will be talking about our self advocacy. This is my live program in just a little bit, which is our self advocacy program targeted, I guess you could say, for DDD members. But before I go into that, I will just share a couple of our core services. So I talked about our role, I talked about our philosophy, but what do we do? Where do we step in? And our 5 core services are as follows. So we've got peer mentoring and support. So those are one-to-ones. IL, standing for independent living, skills training, transition. So actually, before I go to transition, let me speak to IL skills first. So this includes anything that you might need to live independently, such as bus training, money management, cooking and nutrition, and so on and so forth, like our assistive technology training. Transition, however, refers to both transition from secondary to tertiary education, so like think high school and onwards, or it can refer to if you or somebody that you know is living in an institution, think like a rehabilitation facility or a behavioral health facility, and you don't want to be there anymore, we can provide the supports and structure to prepare you to transition out of that facility if that is your choice. We also have an information and referrals line. So our main phone number, and again, this information will be shared after the presentation, is 520-624-6452. I'll also drop that in the chat later. And what we do is we have our coordinator who takes those queries. So, any question you may have about services in Tucson or the southern Arizona counties, and direct you in the right direction. So, let's say you have questions about low income housing, or you're looking for a piece of durable medical equipment. Feel free to call into that line or use the contact page on our website, and we'll be able to direct you to the place that you might be able to make those proper connects. And last but not least, advocacy. It took us a while, but we got here. So advocacy refers to both how do we express our needs and wants on a personal level, so one-to-one, and also on the flip side, how do we express that to our lawmakers, so on a systemic level? And I see there's something in the chat. Oh, does this cost anything? That's a very good question. So for most of our core services, so like peer support, IL skills training, transition, information, referral advocacy, it is free of charge. I will say that for a program like let me flip to the next slide. Home access program, that's a little bit different, but that's because it's not necessarily a core service. So I'll explain that in a little bit more detail now. We have two additional services that we're also providing to the community. The first one is Linkages, which is our, I guess you could say, partner organization that advocates for people with disabilities to employers. So basically saying, hey, there is this untapped workforce out here of skilled laborers, why don't you hire them? And speaking to those employers, making those connects and hosting both job clubs, so a space for folks to commiserate and talk about strategies, as well as accessible hiring events on a quarterly basis. Our most recent one was actually just a couple of weeks ago, and it had a really great turnout. So we'd love to see you all there in future if you're ever curious what our offices look like. And we also have our home access program, which is the addition of home modifications for those who would like to stay in their own home, but perhaps can't afford adding those modifications. And this is usually billed through insurance, to my knowledge. I don't have a whole lot of expertise, but if you are to call our information referral lines, our coordinator, Alyssa, would be happy to answer any questions you may have. But again, to answer your question, Sam, most programs don't cost anything, which I think is so fantastic and honestly really important. Okay. So there's that phone number that I had mentioned, our email address, as well as the 711 National Relay in order to get in contact with us. I'm actually going to share a bit more information about our self-advocacy This Is My Life program, but I also do need to take a breath and a sip of water, a sink of water. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or to unmute yourself. I'm going to just switch gears and stop the share of this presentation and share something else with y'all.
So the housing, do you guys do like IDLAs, ADHs at all?
I'm not quite sure what those acronyms mean, actually. Could you perhaps provide a little bit of additional context?
Yeah, the IDLAs is independent living homes for like adults, and the other one's like a group home for adults.
Okay. Um, I am not sure, but I can absolutely give you the contact information for somebody who probably would have that info. Would you like that?
Yes, please.
Absolutely. So what I'll do is I will drop that contact info in the chat. And I'm also going to show you how to pop into our website and use that contact form as well. So I will get that shared in just a moment. All righty. Let's see.
So is your services also all around Arizona, or is it just northern, like Tucson? That's southern. Or southern?
Oh, so for direct serves our southern Arizona counties. Let me navigate away from that. Let me pull this up. Just one moment. There we go. So direct serves our southern Arizona county. So I believe that would be Pima, Cochise, Graham, Greenlee, and Santa Cruz. But if you are looking for another center for independent living, we actually do have, I want to say, 5 throughout the state of Arizona. The big one that services Maricopa County is Ability 360, which does have a satellite location that we share an office with. So Direct shares space with Ability 360, and we do quite a bit of collaboration with them. But if you are curious about centers for independent living, not just in Arizona, but let's say you're moving states, we actually do have a network. I just popped it in the chat for the ILRU, which has a directory of the different centers for independent living and what geography, I guess you could say, each center for independent living covers. Any other questions before I introduce self-advocacy? Oh, no. Okay. Then I will hop straight into it. So for self-advocacy, this is a program that I actually facilitate. It's called Self-Advocacy, This Is My Life. And the intention of it is to learn how to speak up for yourself. So we want to develop those self-respect and self-esteem muscles, increase knowledge and skills about seeking information about options so that informed decision, making informed choices, learning from mistakes, active listening and problem solving, standing up for your rights, self-determination, and living and participating fully in the community. So for eligibility, I would say that it is, once again, our southern Arizona counties. So Cochise, Graham, Greenlee, Pima, or Santa Cruz. These are hosted in a workshop setting. So they're in groups, usually small groups of, I want to say, four to seven individuals per cohort, but you can hop in at any time. And all tax nor personal or service dollars are required. So as I stated, a lot of the services that we host at Direct are funded by federal grants. And as a result of that, that means that to you, the consumer, they are free of charge. We also do have an option for individual, meaning one-to-one courses for VR members. So those who are enrolled in vocational rehabilitation with a referral. Otherwise, the process to get started with us would just be what's called a self-referral, meaning you would call us at 520-624-6452, or send us an email or navigate to our website, whatever way you would like to do it. Say, I'm interested in joining this workshop, and we'll get you in as soon as we can. So we would meet one-to-one, talk about what is it that you want to learn more about in terms of self-advocacy. And then from there, get started. As I was explaining to Kate earlier, I'm not sure if the recording had started before or after that. We do this workshop year round. So if you are catching the tail end, let's say, of the This Is My Life series, and you want to start from the beginning, totally understandable. We can get you into the next session, and you don't have to just come to it once. Like, I have a bunch of participants who are like, actually, I feel like I could really practice or apply my self-advocacy skills again, or I want to hone my skills in a different direction this time. So my goal is a little bit different, but I want to be around peers who are also learning. So they come back, and we more than encourage that. We love to have folks who have had a little bit of exposure, a little bit of experience with self-advocacy so that they can help support their peers. But yeah, it is also modular or choose your own adventure, meaning that we have different sessions about specific topics like communication or problem solving or the history of disability rights. And if you just want to attend one and then you're like, the other ones I'm not so sure about, or I don't really want to go to them at the moment, you're welcome to do that. You are not locked in for all, oh, I don't think I had shared this, all 9 weeks, which includes an orientation and whatnot. But if you have any questions, feel free to once again pop them in the chat or chime in. I'm really quickly going to share my screen so that you can have an idea of what our web page looks like and how to use our contact form there. Okie dokie. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so hopefully y'all can see my screen. This is Direct's website. So we are at directaz for Arizona.org. And if you are curious about how to get in contact with us, first page, questions, contact us. Hit this bright yellow button. Also, if you're curious more so about This Is My Life or some of our programs, go to Get Support, Core Services, and it's that very first one. So Advocacy. This Is My Life. And all of the information that I just shared with you throughout the course of this PowerPoint and my sharing of the flyers is on this page. You can click this button if you would like to get in contact and do that self-referral. So it's directaz.org/contact. But also one thing that I think is really cool about this webpage is we have an image as well as a blurb from one of our This Is My Life participants who shared her experience with joining self-advocacy. And if you get our newsletter, we actually did do a very short interview with her where she shared her experience of going back to school and deciding to pursue getting a college degree as a result of her being a part of the program. So it's always really cool to hear about folks' success stories. But yeah, I know that it is running up on time. So I wanted to ask you all if you had any questions for me or any lingering thoughts on your mind, in which case I'm happy to chat with y'all.
I love it. I'm so excited to get to know about your This Is My Life program. I think that's going to be super helpful for a lot of people. Sounds really great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for having me. Once again, I'm good. Thank you for hosting this event. Thank you so much for being here, Sam. And I'm gonna post our little website link in the chat. I will also be sharing flyers and whatnot with Kate via email so that those can be passed along. But yeah, thank you all for having me once again, and I hope that you have a lovely rest of your afternoon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a
Thank
good day.
you. Bye.